Good afternoon, folks. Welcome to another episode of The Press. I'm your evocative, provocative, talkative host, EJ, and today we're going to talk about something a little different. Instead of rambling on about a trope of writing or some piece of pop culture news, what we're going to talk about today is an update, as it were. Today I'd like to bring you all a little update on Atlas Cobalt Knights. This is the book I've been working on for the past year. This is the direct sequel to Atlas, the follow-up to Zephyr, my two books I published previously through Amazon. Atlas follows, a little background first. Atlas follows the story of Sam Schuyler, the world's first natural-born superhuman, as he struggles in a world that really has no place for him, in a world that sees all supers as criminals, as thieves and scoundrels, because up until this point, the only people with superpowers got them from government-funded research labs. So if you had superpowers without a government contract, obviously you're a supervillain. You've obviously stolen it. Well, Sam turns that on his head, and the first book is the story of his triumph, of his rising above that contention, of his being able to step up on the stage and say, this is wrong, and his being able to come forth and say, we should be able to police ourselves, because you can't get rid of us. We're here now, and we need to practice self-discipline in order to maintain our own independence without needing a government agency to control us. Zephyr is the story of Haley Schuyler, his daughter, 20 years down the line, as she faces a different sort of challenge, as she has to step out of the shadow of her father, who in his 20-year career as a superhero has become the leading face of the superhuman community. She has to step out and craft her own identity and be able to take her own path, because she's not just like her father. She's her father's daughter, but she's not him. And so she has to be able to take her own road in a different world than the world Sam grew up in. And Atlas Cobalt Knights was the result of asking myself the question, if he starts out as something of an outcast, someone who's not particularly welcome by most people's standards, if he begins his career as a powerful threat to most people concerned with supers, how does he go from this icon of rebellion, this kind of quiet, reserved, stoic, who would rather show up, do the work, and go home, who would rather show people that it's best to keep your head down and just do the best you can with what you've got, to an icon of heroism, of being able to step into any situation and immediately take leadership. Someone who is respected by the community, when previously they saw him as kind of a sanctimonious jerk. Someone who really just likes to come in and tell everybody how they should act and then fly away to go off and be unaccountable. How do we establish that accountability? How do we establish that while still maintaining his independence? Because he's never been particularly fond of team play, as it were. He's always preferred to do work on his own because he sees it as only endangering himself. When he's with a team, he has to watch out for the other people around him. When he's working alone, the only person he's putting at risk is himself. So how do I develop that? Well, I sat down, I said he's going to need a real threat. He's going to need something that he can't take on alone. And to counter that, he'd need someone to help him. He'd need someone capable of standing up and standing right beside him, matching him blow for blow. And to that end, I created COBALT, a test pilot for Evertech, the company of Paul Moray. Think Elon Musk with the charisma and gravitas of someone like Idris Elba, capable of commanding any room he walks into, not just by merit of his resources, but by merit of his presence and his ability to communicate with anyone in the room. A man who can stand next to the titans of the superhero world and make them feel small. COBALT, Ian Watanabe, is the test pilot for one of Paul Moray's more eccentric ventures, the Orbital Zone satellite, a space station privately owned to be used as a launching point for lunar and eventual Martian expeditions. But it serves another purpose. It serves as a launching point for the COBALT armor suit, which is an advanced suit of technology based on the designs of Prometheus, the former benefactor of the Vanguard, which would become the Tomorrow Force and gain Paul Moray as its technical consultant when Thomas Wan, Prometheus, met his unfortunate end in the events of Atlas. Spoiler alert there. And so COBALT steps up with equal power to Sam. He steps up with more charisma, with the ability to talk to crowds, with the ability to really get in and relate to people. Because Sam has always felt a little bit distant. Sam has never been particularly good in social situations. He's always been a bit of an outcast. Captain Watanabe doesn't have that problem. So now, Sam has to face the challenge of someone else with as much power and more pull, trying to direct superheroes in a different direction than he sees they ought to go. So how does he deal with the pressure? Does he back away? Does he hang up his cape and retire, or does he stand and fight? And where does he draw the line? Battle lines will be drawn as they face off against a threat unlike any they have ever seen, in an adventure full of thrills, spills, and chills, and a reminder of just what a good superhero story should teach us. The good and evil exist. The good must always stand up to evil in all of its forms, and the good will triumph. This has been a special edition of The Press. Thank you, and good night. Hey, did you enjoy listening to me ramble on? Well, if you want to keep up to date on COBALT Knights, go ahead and like the video and subscribe. It'll really help out the channel. Thanks a lot.